I have a new girlfriend, Jake said abruptly. She's moving in here with me, and I'm divorcing you. You'll have to go live with my parents. I stared at him, not comprehending. What are you talking about, Jake? I don't need you anymore, he continued coldly. You can stay with my parents if you want, either as their breadwinner or their housekeeper. They laugh at you behind your back, you know. They're awful people, but I think it's better this way. The shock and betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. But I knew, deep down, it was time for them all to leave. My name is Sarah, and I'm a 34-year-old software developer living in Chicago, Illinois. My life changed when I met Jake at a tech conference hosted by a mutual friend. Jake, 36, was charming, engaging, and we hit it off immediately. We spent the evening talking about our careers, our dreams, and everything in between. It wasn't long before Jake asked me out, and our relationship blossomed quickly. Jake was everything I had hoped for in a partner. He was supportive, kind, and always knew how to make me laugh. After a year of dating, Jake proposed, and I was over the moon. We got married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family. I felt like the luckiest woman alive. After our wedding, Jake introduced me to his parents. They were elderly, living on a modest pension, and seemed genuinely kind and supportive. They welcomed me with open arms, and I felt a sense of belonging with them. We visited them often, and I enjoyed their company. 9 months into our marriage, Jake brought up a concern. Sarah, my parents are getting older, and I'm worried about them living alone. What do you think about moving in with them? He asked one evening. I paused, considering his proposal. It would be a big change, but I understand your concern. How would we manage the space? Jake's face lit up. We could renovate their house to accommodate 2 families. It would be cheaper than buying a new house, and we'd still have our privacy. It sounded like a reasonable plan. Jake's parents were kind people, and I believed it could work. All right, let's do it, I agreed. But then Jake dropped a bombshell. There's something else I need to tell you. My parents are in debt, $200,000. They can't afford the renovation. I was stunned. How did that happen? Jake looked uncomfortable. It started small but grew over time. They need our help. Blinded by love and wanting to support my husband, I agreed to use my savings and future earnings to cover the costs. We'll get through this together, I assured him. We started the renovation, and I worked tirelessly to manage the finances and keep everything on track. Jake, however, didn't contribute financially as he had promised. When I questioned him, he always had an excuse, and my suspicions began to grow. Despite my doubts, I continued to work hard, believing I was doing the right thing for our family. One day, I came home early from work and overheard a conversation that changed everything. Jake and his parents were in the living room, and I couldn't believe what I heard. Once the debt is paid off, we can. Jake's voice trailed off as he noticed my presence. They quickly changed the subject, but the unease in the room was palpable. I felt a knot in my stomach, wondering what they were hiding. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the shocking revelations to come. The conversation I overheard that day planted seeds of doubt in my mind. Jake and his parents had abruptly changed the subject when they noticed me, and their suspicious behavior didn't sit well with me. I decided to be more observant and cautious, but I continued with the renovation and debt repayments, determined to support my husband. Weeks passed, and I noticed Jake's reluctance to share financial details with me. Whenever I asked about his contribution to the renovation, he became evasive. One evening, as we were having dinner, I decided to confront him directly. Jake, we need to talk about our finances. I've been handling everything so far, but you haven't contributed as we agreed. What's going on? Jake looked uncomfortable. Sarah, my salary is just not enough to cover everything. I'm trying my best. I frowned. But You promised we would do this together. I can't carry this burden alone. He sighed. I know, and I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. His vague response did nothing to alleviate my concerns. I decided to take matters into my own hands and started looking into our joint finances more closely. To my shock, I discovered that Jake had been withdrawing money from our accounts without telling me. The amounts were substantial, and I had no idea where the money was going. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to come home early from work more often, hoping to catch Jake in the act. One fateful day, my suspicions were confirmed. As I quietly approached the house, I overheard Jake and his parents discussing their plans. You have to keep her in the dark a little longer, Jake's father said. Once the debt is paid off, we can kick her out and keep the house. Jake's mother laughed. She's such a fool, thinking we're all in this together. My heart raced as I listened. The man I loved and his parents were using me. They had no intention of keeping their promises. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but I knew I had to stay calm and think strategically. That night, I pretended everything was normal. I couldn't let Jake or his parents know that I was onto their scheme. Instead, I started planning my next moves. I consulted a lawyer in secret, gathering information about my rights and options. I also started setting aside money in a separate account, preparing for the day when I would need to make my escape. Over the next few months, I played the part of the unsuspecting wife while quietly working to protect myself. I managed to speed up the debt repayments using my savings, and I carefully documented every transaction. I also began researching the legal steps necessary to secure my assets and prepare for a divorce. Then, one evening, Jake approached me with a serious expression. Sarah, we need to talk. I feigned ignorance. Sure, what's on your mind? I've met someone else, he said bluntly. I'm in love with her, and I want a divorce. I need you to move in with my parents so I can live here with her. The audacity of his words stunned me, but I kept my composure. I see. When were you planning to tell me? Jake seemed relieved by my calm response. I thought now would be the right time. She's moving in next month. I nodded slowly. All right, Jake. I'll move out. But there's something you should know. He raised an eyebrow. What's that? I've been the one paying off your parents' debt, I said, my voice steady. The house is legally mine because I took over the mortgage. You and your parents need to leave. Jake's face paled. What are you talking about? I stood firm. I consulted a lawyer months ago. Everything is in my name. You have no right to this house. Jake was at a loss for words. But the debt? There's still $110,000 remaining, I said coldly. And that's your responsibility. I won't be paying it anymore. Jake's shock turned to anger. You can't do this. I already have, I replied, turning to walk away. I'll be serving you divorce papers soon. That night, I felt a sense of liberation. The betrayal had been painful, but I had taken control of my life. I wasn't the naive woman Jake and his parents thought I was. I had outsmarted them, and I was ready for the next chapter of my life. As I lay in bed, I knew the battle wasn't over yet. There would be legal battles and emotional turmoil ahead, but I was prepared. I had built a new foundation for myself, one that was strong and unshakable. And with every step I took, I moved closer to reclaiming my life and my dignity. The day after my confrontation with Jake, I moved quickly to secure my position. I filed for divorce and put the house on the market. My lawyer assured me that, given the circumstances, the court would likely favor my case. I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. As the days went by, Jake and his parents scrambled to figure out their next move. They had underestimated me, and now they were facing the consequences of their deceit. I could see the desperation in Jake's eyes whenever we crossed paths in the house. He tried to reason with me several times, but I remained firm in my decision. One evening, Jake approached me again, his demeanor more subdued than before. Sarah, can't we work something out? We don't have to go through with the divorce. I looked at him, my resolve unwavering. Jake, you betrayed my trust. You and your parents used me. There's no going back from that. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was just trying to take care of them. They needed help. And I was willing to help, I replied. But you took advantage of my kindness and love. You lied to me. Jake fell silent, knowing there was no way to justify his actions. I walked away, feeling a sense of closure. I had given him a chance to come clean, and he had chosen deceit instead. Now, it was time for me to move forward. With the house on the market, I focused on finding a new place to live. I wanted a fresh start, free from the memories of betrayal. My friends were incredibly supportive, offering their homes and advice as I navigated this difficult time. I found a cozy apartment downtown, perfect for starting anew. The day I moved out was bittersweet. I had put so much effort into making our house a home, and now I was leaving it behind. But I knew it was necessary for my healing and growth. As I packed my belongings, I found small reminders of happier times, photos, mementos, and gifts. I decided to leave most of them behind, wanting to let go of the past completely. For months after I filed for divorce, the court date arrived. Jake and his parents showed up, looking defeated. My lawyer presented our case clearly, highlighting the deceit and financial manipulation I had endured. The judge listened attentively, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. Jake's lawyer tried to paint a different picture, claiming that Jake had acted out of desperation and love for his parents. But the evidence was clear, and my lawyer's arguments were compelling. When it was my turn to speak, I told my story honestly and emotionally, laying bare the pain and betrayal I had experienced. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me the house and ordering Jake to pay alimony. His parents were left to deal with their remaining debt, a burden they had hoped to shift onto me. As I left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Justice had been served. I sold the house quickly, recovering a substantial amount of my investment. With the money, I paid off my remaining debts and invested in my future. I started taking night classes to advance my career, determined to build a life that was entirely my own. One day, as I was settling into my new apartment, I received a letter from Jake. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. Inside was a long, heartfelt apology. Jake admitted to his wrongdoings and expressed deep regret for how he had treated me. He asked for forgiveness, not expecting reconciliation but hoping for some semblance of peace between us. Reading his words, I felt a mixture of emotions. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, but I also saw a glimmer of sincerity in his apology. I decided to respond, acknowledging his letter and expressing my hope that he would learn from his mistakes. I didn't forgive him entirely, but I chose to let go of my anger. It was time to move on. As the weeks turned into months, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and threw myself into my work and studies. The apartment began to feel like home, filled with new memories and experiences. I found joy in the small things, cooking a meal for myself, decorating my space, and exploring the city. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I reflected on my journey. The betrayal and deceit had been painful, but they had also taught me valuable lessons about resilience and self-worth. I had emerged stronger, more independent, and ready to face whatever the future held. Months passed, and life began to feel normal again. My apartment in downtown Chicago was now my sanctuary. I thrived in my career, excelling in my software development projects and enjoying the newfound freedom. My nights were filled with classes, helping me climb even higher in my field. One day, as I was walking home from work, I ran into an old friend, Emily. We decided to grab a coffee and catch up. As we talked, I realized how much I had missed genuine connections. Emily had always been a good listener, and as I shared my story, she was both shocked and supportive. "You've been through so much, Sarah," Emily said, shaking her head. "I'm glad you're doing well now. You deserve all the happiness in the world." Her words warmed my heart. It felt good to be understood and to reconnect with someone who truly cared. A few weeks later, I received a call from my lawyer. The divorce settlement was finalized, and the alimony from Jake was now officially in place. It was a significant amount, and knowing that Jake and his girlfriend would be contributing to my financial stability felt like poetic justice. However, the true victory was not the money. It was the sense of closure and empowerment. I had taken control of my life and emerged stronger than ever. The betrayal had been a harsh lesson, but it had also shown me my resilience. I decided it was time to focus on the future. With the settlement money, I invested in a small startup that had always intrigued me. The company, focusing on innovative tech solutions, had the potential to grow significantly. It was a risk, but I believed in their vision and my ability to make sound decisions. One afternoon, as I was working on a new project, I received a message from Jake. He wanted to meet and talk. After some contemplation, I agreed, curious to see what he had to say. We met at a small cafe, and Jake looked visibly different, humbled, perhaps. He started by apologizing again, more sincerely this time. "Sarah, I know I hurt you deeply, and I can't change the past. I just wanted to say that I'm truly sorry." I nodded, appreciating his words. "Jake, I accept your apology. I've moved on, and I hope you can too. We both need to learn from this and be better." As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of relief. It was the final piece of closure I needed. Forgiving Jake didn't mean forgetting the betrayal, but it allowed me to let go of any lingering resentment. With the past firmly behind me, I embraced my new life. My investments began to pay off, and the startup I believed in started gaining traction. Professionally and personally, I was in a better place than I had ever been. One evening, as I stood on my balcony watching the city lights, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been tumultuous, but it had led me to a place of strength and independence. I had learned to trust myself and to value my worth. The future was bright, filled with possibilities. I was ready to face whatever came my way, knowing that I had the resilience and wisdom to navigate life's challenges. My story was one of betrayal and deceit, but it was also one of triumph and empowerment. I had reclaimed my life, and with each new day, I continued to build the future I deserved.